The tragic tale of the Richardson family murders shattered the peaceful image of Medicine Hat, Alberta. At the center of this shocking crime was a 12-year-old girl, Jasmine Richardson, who became entangled in a forbidden relationship with 23-year-old Jeremy Steinke, a man with a troubled past and dark obsessions. This is the story of how a rebellion can go deadly wrong, a manipulation that can be spun out of control, lives tragically cut short. Most chillingly, it reminds us how easily the darkness in human nature comes to the fore, and how superficially ordinary lives can look while they host turmoil beyond our imagination. Together, they hatched a plan, one that would leave an entire family dead and a community reeling with sadness and horror. What would make a teenage girl and her far older boyfriend commit such a heinous crime? How can love, or what they perceived as love, become so derailed that it leads to destruction? In this tragic case, we will examine what led up to the murders, what came afterward, and the questions that still linger for those who remember the Richardson family. Medicine Hat, Alberta, was a quiet town, a place where neighbors waved to one another, where kids rode bikes, where weekends were marked by block parties and backyard barbecues. It was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to go wrong, until 2006, when a crime so horrifying shook the entire nation and changed everything. The Richardson family seemed to be the very portrait of a typical suburban household. In Medicine Hat, Alberta, they were known as a warm, affectionate, and close-knit family. Mark Richardson worked in the oil industry, a tough job that demanded diligence. He was as dedicated to his work as he was to his family. His wife, Deborah Richardson, was a stay-at-home mom. Her warm and amiable nature made her popular among neighbors and friends. She was actively involved in the lives of her two kids, volunteering at their school, making sure all their needs were taken care of. The couple's two children brought different dynamics into the home. Jacob, the youngest, was just 8 years old, a bubbly and carefree boy. He loved playing with friends, was fond of drawing, and could spend hours glued to his favorite cartoons. His innocence, his fresh energy, filled the Richardson home with laughter and joy. Jacob was the kind of little boy who could brighten up any room with just a smile. Then, there was Jasmine. At 12 years old, she was at a different stage of life, negotiating the conflicts of adolescence. Jasmine Richardson was like many preteens, bright, inquisitive, and eager to carve out her own identity. But as she grew older, a fascination with the goth subculture began to take hold of her, transforming her in ways that alarmed her parents, Mark and Deborah. Her wardrobe darkened. Her music preferences shifted to the alternative and edgy. She became increasingly withdrawn and defiant. At first, they dismissed it as a phase, the usual rebellion of adolescence. But as Jasmine's mood swings and combative nature deepened, they realized something more troubling was unfolding. Despite the growing tension, the Richardsons remained a close-knit family. Mark and Deborah worked hard to provide a stable, nurturing environment for Jasmine and her younger brother, Jacob. They set boundaries while encouraging open communication, hoping patience and understanding would steer Jasmine back to a healthier path. To outsiders, they seemed like the perfect suburban family, warm, loving, and filled with the usual ups and downs of everyday life. But beneath the surface, a fracture was forming, and soon it would crack open with devastating consequences. The presence of Jacob, an innocent, playful child, only made what was to come even more tragic. No one could have imagined how the seemingly ordinary family story would unravel, shocking their community and leaving the nation reeling in disbelief. Jasmine's descent into darkness took a pivotal turn when she met Jeremy Steinke, a 23-year-old man, deeply entrenched in the goth subculture. They connected through online forums and mutual acquaintances, bonding over their shared fascination with rebellion and the macabre. For Jasmine, Jeremy was intoxicating. His thick black eyeliner, his dark attire, and his bizarre claim of being a 300-year-old werewolf made him mysterious, magnetic. Jeremy's troubled past, marked by abandonment and relentless bullying, had shaped him into a rebellious figure who glorified darkness and defied societal norms. To Jasmine, he was everything thrilling and forbidden, a stark contrast to her structured suburban life. Their relationship intensified rapidly, and Jeremy became more than just a love interest. He was her confidant, her partner in defiance. When Mark and Deborah discovered their daughter's relationship with Jeremy, they were horrified. The age gap alone was alarming, but it was his disturbing persona and the power he seemed to have over Jasmine that truly unsettled them. Determined to protect their daughter, they enforced strict rules. They forbade her from seeing him. They closely monitored her activities. They hoped to sever the toxic connection before it consumed her entirely. But their intervention had the opposite effect. Jasmine saw her parents as obstacles to her happiness, fueling her resentment and deepening her attachment to Jeremy, rather than discouraging their bond. The restrictions only reinforced their twisted belief that Mark and Deborah were enemies, standing in the way of their love and their freedom. The relationship took a darker turn. They fed each other's growing animosity toward her family. Their fascination with Gothic themes and rebellion spiraled into something far more sinister. What began as a teenage infatuation evolved into a chilling pact against those who sought to separate them. Forbidden from seeing each other openly, Jasmine and Jeremy resorted to secrecy. Text messages, emails, online chats became their lifeline. These clandestine exchanges became a breeding ground for their frustrations to fester and their dark fantasies to grow. Their conversations took a disturbing shift, from venting about parental control to contemplating the unthinkable. Jeremy, with his flair for the dramatic and his sinister worldview, encouraged Jasmine's anger. He convinced her that her parents' opposition wasn't about love, but about control. His validation pushed her further into rebellion, warping her perspective until an unimaginable thought took root. The digital trail they left behind revealed a horrifying descent into shared delusions. Their words, transformed from mere expressions of frustration into concrete plans for murder. One particular email exchange stands out as especially chilling. Jasmine allegedly wrote, "I have this plan. It starts with me killing them and ends with me living with you." The ice in her words, the eerie detachment in her tone left no doubt. This was no longer teenage angst. This was something far more terrifying. What followed would forever shatter the illusion of a perfect suburban family and leave an entire community grappling with the unfathomable truth. On the night of April 22nd, 2006, the Richardson family's suburban home, once filled with the sounds of laughter and love, became the site of an unimaginable tragedy. Jeremy Steinke, armed and resolute, approached the house, ready to put his horrific plan into action. His accomplice, 12-year-old Jasmine Richardson, waited for him outside, the dark twist of their bond already set into motion. Inside, Mark and Deborah Richardson, completely unaware of the impending nightmare, were settling in for an ordinary evening. The tranquility of their home would soon be shattered by the unthinkable violence brought on by their daughter and her boyfriend. With chilling certainty, Jeremy entered the house, his intent clear. The first victim was Deborah, the matriarch of the family. The moment she realized the danger, she fought with every ounce of strength she had. But Jeremy's attack was brutal and swift. The fight, desperate as it was, ended in Deborah's life being taken. Mark rushed to her aid, but his intervention was in vain. He, too, was overcome by the ferocity of Jeremy's assault. The house fell into chaos and despair. In the midst of it all, young Jacob, just 8 years old, hid in his bed, trembling in fear. But Jeremy showed no mercy, and the silence of that room was soon broken by the savage end of the boy's life. Witnesses and later investigators confirmed that Jasmine had played a role in Jacob's murder, either directly assisting or enabling Jeremy in his horrifying act. The weight of her involvement sent shockwaves through an already monstrous crime. When the bloodshed ceased, the Richardson home was left in a state of unspeakable horror. The once warm, lively atmosphere was replaced by an eerie stillness, as blood soaked the walls and floors. The carnage was so extreme that even experienced investigators struggled to process the scene before them. Jasmine and Jeremy, in their twisted escape, left behind the shattered remnants of a family. The 3 lives they took, Mark, Deborah, and Jacob, were stolen with brutality, but the consequences of their actions stretched far beyond those lives. The safety and peace of the quiet suburban neighborhood was forever fractured. The following morning, a neighbor's child came to the Richardson home, hoping to play with his best friend Jacob. When no one answered the door, he peered through a window, only to be met with a sight he could never forget. The bloodied bodies of Mark and Deborah lay lifeless inside, their home transformed into a house of horrors. The young boy ran, terrified, to alert his parents, and soon the authorities were called. What had once been a family of ordinary suburban life had now become a cautionary tale, a symbol of the darkest depths to which toxic and delusional love can descend. It was a quiet evening at the Richardson home, but what the police found upon arrival was beyond comprehension. When they were called, the officers were unprepared for the gruesome scene that awaited them. Blood covered the walls and floor of the living room. Mark and Deborah Richardson's bodies lay lifeless, victims of unimaginable violence. In a bedroom, the body of their 8-year-old son Jacob was discovered, further emphasizing the brutality of the crime. The officers were shaken, and initial suspicions pointed to a possible abduction. The disappearance of 12-year-old Jasmine Richardson only deepened the mystery, leading to fears she had been kidnapped by the killer, or perhaps another victim of the violence. However, the investigation took an unexpected turn as police uncovered disturbing evidence. Jasmine's belongings were found, including a series of emails, social media messages, and text exchange with an older man, Jeremy Steinke. These communications revealed a chilling plan. Jasmine and Jeremy had discussed their shared fantasies of murder, even planning to kill anyone who might stand in their way. It became clear that Jasmine was not a victim, but an active accomplice in the crime. She and Jeremy had fled the scene, driving to a nearby town to hide with friends who were unaware of the murders. Witnesses later reported seeing the couple laughing, holding hands, and even kissing, seemingly unfazed by the horrific acts they had just committed. Within 24 hours, the police, piecing together evidence from the crime scene and witness reports, tracked down the couple. Their arrest marked the end of their chilling spree. But the revelation that Jasmine, a 12-year-old girl, had been involved in the killings shocked the community. The ensuing trial made national headlines. As one of the most disturbing criminal cases in recent memory, it sparked debates about the nature of youth involvement in violent crime and the role of adults in influencing minors. Jasmine was tried under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which afforded her certain protections due to her age. However, prosecutors argued that she was fully aware of her actions and played an active role in the murders, emphasizing that the killings were premeditated. They painted a picture of Jasmine as a girl who, despite her youth, was manipulated by Jeremy into committing a ruthless act of violence. On the other hand, the defense team painted a different picture. They argued that Jasmine was a vulnerable 12-year-old who had been brainwashed and coerced into participating in the murders. They contended that her emotional immaturity made her an easy target for manipulation by Jeremy, an older man with sinister intentions. As the trial progressed, evidence from witnesses, forensic experts, and testimony about the relationship between Jasmine and Jeremy painted a clearer picture. Jeremy, a 23-year-old man, had used his control over Jasmine to manipulate her into helping him carry out the murders. Jasmine had played a key role in planning, executing, and covering up the crime. The defense's claims of brainwashing failed to sway the jury. It was evident that Jasmine had been more than just a passive participant. She had been deeply involved in the scheme, understanding the gravity of her actions. The verdict was delivered with a sense of finality. Jasmine was found guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. Despite her youth, her actions were too severe to be excused by her age. She was sentenced to the maximum penalty for a juvenile: 10 years in a youth detention facility, including 4 years in a psychiatric facility, and 4 years under conditional supervision. Jeremy, on the other hand, received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for 25 years. The severity of his sentence reflected his central role in the crime as the primary manipulator and instigator. Jasmine's release in 2016 marked the end of her legal odyssey. To protect her privacy, she was granted a new identity and allowed to start over. She reportedly rebuilt her life away from the public's gaze. Her release sparked mixed reactions. Some saw it as a case of rehabilitation, applauding the justice system for giving second chances, especially to young offenders who might have been coerced into committing heinous acts. Others, however, questioned whether justice had truly been served for the family whose lives Jasmine had so violently taken. They wondered if a new identity and a fresh start could ever truly balance the gravity of her crimes. The Richardson murders, a tragedy that shocked a community and a nation, remain a stark reminder of the dangers of manipulation, the complexity of youth involvement in violent crimes, and the long-lasting impact of such horrific events. The case of Jasmine Richardson and Jeremy Steinke remains one of the most disturbing and tragic events in Canadian true crime. It continues to haunt the small community of Medicine Hat, Alberta, and has left a deep, lasting impact that stretches far beyond the town's borders. What set this case apart was the heinous nature of the murders, particularly considering the extreme youth of those involved. Jasmine, just 12 years old at the time, played a central role in the killings of her parents and younger brother. The murder was carried out with chilling premeditation and violence, leaving behind a haunting reminder of the destructive potential of toxic relationships and manipulation. Jeremy, at 23 years old, was the mastermind behind the crimes, exerting influence over Jasmine, manipulating her into committing such an unspeakable act. Jeremy's case, unlike Jasmine's, is one where his identity has never been concealed. He remains incarcerated, serving 3 life sentences with no chance of parole for 25 years. His role in the crime has been extensively examined, with his relationship with Jasmine often analyzed as an example of the toxic dynamics that can spiral out of control. To many, Jeremy serves as a symbol of the darker side of relationships, where manipulation and control replace love, respect, and trust. While Jeremy's actions are scrutinized, the case of Jasmine raises difficult questions about the role of youth in criminal responsibility. Jasmine's anonymity was maintained for many years, insulating her from public accountability, which sparked heated debates. Critics argued that her anonymity set a dangerous precedent, one that could undermine the seriousness of her actions. This case continues to serve as a focal point for discussions about the rehabilitation of minors, the balance between shielding vulnerable offenders and ensuring justice for victims. The psychological influence that Jeremy had on Jasmine has been the subject of studies and media coverage. His background and motivations are often explored to understand the kind of dysfunction and manipulation that could drive a young girl to commit such a violent act. For many, Jeremy's story is a stark reminder of the dangers of unbridled manipulation and the potential consequences of dysfunctional dynamics within relationships. His ongoing incarceration, for some, is seen as a form of protection to prevent him from inflicting harm on others. However, it also raises questions about the role of mental health intervention and whether society could have done more to address the factors that led to this tragedy. The Richardson family murders expose the fragility of trust within families and the devastating consequences that can result when that trust is broken. The murders not only shocked the local community, but reverberated across Canada and beyond, prompting reflection on the complexities of human behavior, justice, and accountability. For the people of Medicine Hat, the murders are more than a tragedy. They are a grim reminder of how quickly a seemingly normal life can descend into unimaginable horror. In the years since the case, the murders continue to spark outrage and debate. It serves as a chilling example of the catastrophic potential of toxic relationships and manipulation, even among those who appear to be part of a stable, loving family. The Richardson family murders force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the dark side of love, control, and human behavior, issues that, while difficult to discuss, are crucial in understanding the complexities of crime, justice, and the responsibility society bears in addressing these issues before they lead to irreversible consequences.
This was today's true story. Our aim is for people to learn from such incidents and strive to improve society. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.